My first step is I want to get all of the x's on one side, and I'm going to move that constant over to the other side. Constant is the number. So now we have an expression with a number where c should be, but it's not a perfect square trinomial. So we're moving that number over, and we're going to make it a perfect square trinomial. So we're going to find c and add it to both sides. Now, why do I add c to both sides? Because if I add it to the one side, I have to do to the other side. So then we're going to be able to factor it so that it is a square. So what are we going to do to get rid of that square? We're going to take the square root, make sure that our answer is plus or minus, and then we just solve for x. Now, it sounds super complicated. I want you to make sure you have it written in words because you are going to go back to this when you're doing all of your problems. Okay, so first example, example 3. X squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. Now, whenever we have a problem like this, the first thing we want to do is check to see if it's factorable. So let's look at our diamond. Because if it's factorable, we don't have to complete the square. So, can you think of two numbers that multiply to negative 16 and add up to positive 6? You guys gave up really fast. Negative 2, positive 8, right? So what would that factor to? X minus 2 times x plus 8 equals 0. And then, so what would my answers be? Positive 2, negative 8. Good. So this was factorable. So do I have to complete the square on this one? No. We're going to, and our answer should come out to exactly the same as this.
How are we going to do it?
So that we can see that it works. So it factors. So if you ever get a problem like this and you can factor it, you don't have to complete the square. Completing the square is what we do after we figure out that it's not factorable. We're going to complete the square on this one so that we can get used to the process, and we should get the exact same answer as what we started with. Okay? So our first step is we want to get all of the x's to one side and all of the numbers on the other. So what do I have to do first? Good. Add 16 to both sides. So that's going to give me x squared plus 6x equals 16. Okay, and then what I do is, and this is probably where you guys remember completing the square, I put blanks in there, okay, because we want to make the left-hand side a perfect square trinomial. So we need to find the c that makes it a perfect square trinomial. So I add a blank to the left, and if whatever I do to the one side, I have to do to the other, so I put a blank on the right also. And then let's fill in the blank. What is going to go in this blank? What makes this a perfect square trinomial? 9. How'd you get 9?
Divide 6 by 2, you get 3.
Exactly. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So 9 goes in both of those blanks.
Wait.
So we just made it a perfect square trinomial. Everything that we were just doing about 5 minutes ago up here. All of this stuff is what we just did. Okay? So is everybody okay with that so far?
Yeah.
So we made it a perfect square trinomial. So we can factor this. What would this factor to?
3.
X plus 3 squared, right? And then 16 plus 9 gives me 25. Yes. Okay, so that is step 1 and step 2. Step 3 is we want to get rid of that square root. So how do I get rid of square roots? Or squares? I take the square root. So let's take the square root of both sides. Now if I take the square root of x plus 3 squared, what am I left with? X plus 3. And what's the square root of 25? Positive 5 or Positive or negative 5. So what we're going to have, x plus 3 equals plus or minus 5, right? Whenever we take the square root, it's plus or minus. So now this is really easy. I want to solve for x. So what do I have to do? Good. I have to subtract 3. So let's subtract 3 from both sides. Okay, and so then I'm going to have x equals negative 3 plus or minus 5. So that's two equations, right? X equals negative 3 plus 5, or x equals negative 3 minus 5. So what are my two answers? X equals positive 2, and x equals negative 8. Is that what we got when we factored it? Yeah, so completing the square is still going to give me the correct answer. Okay? Any questions so far? You do need to do all the steps.